Also that my work will find quite an opposition, but I did not know the extent of this opposition and the violence. But time has creative power. The very fact that you came today to take those pictures and the mail of today and of yesterday proves even in science, falsehood cannot live for too long.
The worship of Mars. The body which periodically, once in 14 to 16 years, approached the orbit of the Earth must have been of considerable mass, for it was able to influence the rotation of the Earth. Apparently, however, it was much smaller than Venus, or it did not approach so closely, because the catastrophes of the days of the Exodus and the Conquest were greater than those of the time of Uzziah, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Nevertheless, for the peoples who lived at the time, they must have been impressive experiences, and must have been incorporated in their cosmogonic mythologies. Shall we be able, when inquiring into this matter, to find guiding hints to help us obtain some data about the body which periodically approached the Earth? It would probably be the Latin people, at that time very young, just appearing on the historical scene and not loaded down with science, who would give the prodigy a prominent place in their mythology. Roman mythology was appropriated from the Greeks. Only one god of Roman mythology plays a role not comparable to that attributed to him on the Greek Olympus. It is the god Mars, whose counterpart is Ares of the Greeks. Mars, the Lord of War, was second to Jupiter Zeus. He personified the planet Mars. To him was dedicated the month of March, Mars. And as a god, he was supposed to be the father of Romulus, the founder of Rome. He was the national god of the Romans. Livy wrote in the preface to his History of Rome, the mightiest of empires, next after that of heaven. The Roman people profess that their father and the father of their empire was none other than Mars. Placing the time of Mars' activity as late as the foundation of Rome indicates that the Romans had a tradition. The city on the Tiber came into existence during a generation which witnessed some great exploit of their god planet. The founding of Rome took place close in time to the great perturbations of nature in the days of Amos and Isaiah. According to calculations of Fabius Pictor, Rome was founded in the latter half of the first year of the 8th Olympiad, or the year 747 BC. Other Roman authorities differ by a few years only. The year 747 BC is the beginning of an astronomical era in the Middle East, and the commotion of Uzziah took place apparently in the same year. According to a persistent Roman tradition, the conception of Romulus by his mother, the foundation of Rome, and the death of Romulus occurred in years of great commotions accompanied by celestial phenomena, disturbances in solar movement. These changes were connected in some way to the planet Mars. Plutarch wrote, "To the surname of Quirinus bestowed on Romulus, some give the meaning of Mars." The legend says that Romulus was conceived in the first year of the second Olympiad, 772 BC, when the sun was totally eclipsed. According to Latin historians, on the very day of Rome's foundation, the sun was disturbed in its movement, and the world was darkened. In Romulus's time, a plague fell upon the land, bringing sudden death without previous sickness, and a rain of blood and other calamities. Earthquakes convulsed the earth for a long period. Jewish tradition knows that the first settlers of Rome found that the huts collapsed as soon as built. The death of Romulus occurred when, according to Plutarch, suddenly strange and unaccountable disorders with incredible changes filled the air. The light of the sun failed, and night came down upon them, not with peace and quiet, but with awful peals of thunder and furious blasts. And amidst the storm, Romulus disappeared. Ovid's description of the phenomena on the day of Romulus's death is this: both poles shook, and Atlas shifted. The sun vanished. The sky was riven by shooting flames. The people fled, and the king, Romulus, upon his father's, Mars, steeds, soared to the stars. Hezekiah was a contemporary of Romulus and Numa. This was known to Augustine. Now these days extend down to Romulus, king of Romans, or even to the beginning of the reign of his successor, Numa Pompilius. Hezekiah, king of Judah, certainly reigned till then. If Mars really was the defied cosmic visitor of the days of Hezekiah and Sennacherib, then one might expect not only that the activities of Mars would have been ascribed to the generation of Romulus and the foundation of Rome, but that the very date of the perturbation would have been a celebrated date in the cult of Mars. The year of the second campaign of Sennacherib against Palestine is established by modern research as 687 BC. The Talmud helps to set the time of year. It was the night of the feast of spring, Passover. Chinese sources give the exact date, midnight of the 23rd of March, 687 BC, as the date of a great cosmic activity. The main festival in the cult of Mars took place in the month dedicated to this god planet. The Ancilia, or sacred shields, were carried in procession by the Sali, or dancing warrior priests of Mars, on several occasions during the month of March, up to the 23rd, Tubulus Trium, when the military trumpets, tubae, were lustrated, and again in October to the 19th, Arm Illustrium, when both the Ancilia and the arms of the Exertus were purified and put away for the winter. It is only at the end of February that we find indications of the coming Mars cult. The most important role in the cult of Mars appears to be played by the festival of Tubulustrium on the 23rd day of March. The 23rd of March, taken with all other circumstances mentioned above, must impress us. The fact that Mars had festivals on two dates, the other date, the 19th of October, is almost a month after the autumnal equinox, is easily understandable if one remembers there was more than one perturbation connected with the same cosmic cause. The disturbance in the movement of the sun, a few hours before the Assyrian host perished, occurred on the first day of Passover. The cataclysm of the days of the Exodus was caused by the planet Venus. Therefore, about the time of the vernal equinox, there were two festivals, one for the planet Mars, the other for the planet Venus, which coincided in time. The festival of Minerva lasted from the 19th to the 23rd of March. And on March 23rd, Mars, and also Minerva, Athena, were the honored deities. March 23rd. It was apparently some cosmic cause that was responsible for the sudden destruction of the army of Sennacherib and brought about the perturbation in the rotating movement of the earth. Gaseous masses reaching the atmosphere could asphyxiate all breath in certain areas. The explanation requires supporting statements from other sources. Disturbances in the movement of the sun could not be confined to the sun over Palestine, in Egypt. Also, other circumstances of this catastrophe, like the gaseous masses covering the sky, should have been noticed in other regions of the earth too. First, a more exact date for the night of the annihilation of Sennacherib's army should be established. From modern research, we know that it was in the year minus 687. Talmud and Midrash give another valuable clue. The destruction occurred during the first night of Passover. The giant host was destroyed when the people began to sing the Hallel prayer of the Passover service. Passover was observed about the time of the vernal equinox. In the book Edouard Biot, the register begins with this statement: the year 687 BC, in the summer, in the fourth moon, in the day Sen Mao, 23rd of March. During the night, the fixed stars did not appear, though the night was clear, cloudless. In the middle of the night, stars fell like rain. The date, 23rd of March, is Biot's calculation. The statement is based on old Chinese sources, ascribed to Confucius. In another translation of the text by Ramazat, the last part of the passage is rendered as follows: though the night was clear, a star fell in the form of rain. The annals of the bamboo books obviously refer to the same event when they inform us that in the 10th year of Emperor Kui, the 17th emperor of the dynasty Yu, or the 18th monarch since Yahu, the 5 planets went out of their courses. In the night, stars fell like rain. The earth shook. The words in the annals, "in the night, stars fell like rain," are the same as in the record of Confucius dealing with the cosmic event on the 23rd of March, 687 BC. The annals supply the information that the cause of this phenomenon was disturbance among the planets. The record of Confucius is a precious entry because of the time of the phenomenon. The day, the month, and the year is given. The sky was cloudless, so that the stars should have been visible, but they were not. And this reminds us of the words of the prophets. The Bio Catalog, which begins with the description of the year 687 BC, subsequently notes only solitary meteors falling from the sky during the following centuries up to the beginning of this era. Prodigy of the year 687 BC was not a pageant, as we may find again in the Chinese annals of later centuries. The rare phenomenon occurred in that year, and in the part of the year, 23rd of March, 687 BC, when, as explained above, according to modern calculations and the Talmudic data, the destruction of Sennacherib's army took place. In the Chinese record, we have a short but precise amount of the night, which we have recognized as the night of annihilation. We also expect to find in Chinese sources a record of the disturbance in the movement of the sun. China is 45 to 90 degrees longitude east of Palestine, the difference in time being 3 to 6 hours. Hui Nantis, who lived in the 2nd century before the present era, tells us that when the Duke of Liang was at war against Han, during the battle the sun went down. The Duke, swinging his spear, beckoned to the sun, whereupon the sun, for his sake, came back and passed through 3 solar mansions. The subjective mythological part reminds us of the primitive subjective approach of the author of the book of Joshua, and probably also the contemporaries of Joshua. It is the primitive way of interpreting natural phenomena. However, it differs from what is described in the book of Joshua, in that it was not a phenomena of a long pause by the sun, but of a short retrograde motion. And this Chinese description corresponds with the 20th chapter of 2 Kings. The exact date of the reign of Han is not known. It is sometimes supposed, on the basis of astronomical computation, to have been the 5th century before this era, or even later. If this is true, then the event described refers to a period before the dynasty of Han became dominant in China. The land of China is large. It was divided into many princedoms. Probably the story of Prince Tau of Yin is another description of the same event in a different part of China. Lu Heng records that Prince Tau of Yin was an involuntary guest of the King of China when the sun returned to the meridian. It was interpreted as a sign to allow the prince to return home. The story of the Argiv tyrants tells of the sun going speedily to its setting and the evening coming before its proper time. And we recognize that this phenomenon described in the rabbinical sources as having occurred on the day of the burial of Ahaz, father of Hezekiah. The prodigy of the day of Hezekiah, or of the Duke Liu Yang, and Prince Tau of Yin took place at the time of the same tyrants, or was so ascribed. Atreus, says Apollodorus, stipulated with Thyestes and Atreus, should be king if the sun should go backward. And when Thyestes agreed, the sun set in the east. Ovid describes this phenomenon of days of the Argive tyrants. Phoebus, aka Apollo, broke off in mid-career and rested his car about, turned round his steeds to face the dawn. Also, in Tristia, Ovid refers to this literary tradition about the horses of the sun turning aside. A Mayan inscription says a planet brushed close to the earth. 3 solar mansions of the Chinese must have been equal to 10 degrees on the dial at the palace in Jerusalem. According to Talmudic sources, an equal perturbation, but in the opposite direction, occurred on the day Ahaz was carried to his grave. At that time, the day was quickened, a case of 2 consecutive perturbations of a celestial body, where the second perturbation corrected the effect of the first, is recorded in the Annals of Modern Observations, 1875. Wolf's comet passed near the large planet Jupiter and was disturbed on its way. In 1922, when it passed near Jupiter, it was once more disturbed, but with an effect which corrected that of the first disturbance. No perturbation was noticed in the revolution of Jupiter. Its rotation probably proceeded normally. 2. There was a great difference in the masses of these 2 bodies.
End of subchapter.
Looking at the solar system in real time, look at all the bodies that go around Jupiter. That is amazing. This is the solar system in real time according to Universal Sandbox 2. To the inside here. Look. There's Earth, Sun. We can view the habitable zone. There it is right there. The Sun. Where we're at. So we're like right at the beginning of it. Mars is at the very end of it, according to them. Venus is inside the red zone, according to mainstream. We look. There's Earth, Sun. We look. There's Earth, Sun.